Action.
Okay, so it turns out working with fake blood is super messy. Once you start getting it on people and costumes, it becomes pretty hard to just start over. So, here I am in post-production cleaning up blood again.
Okay, cool.
For a little bit of context here, I'm the only crew member, and Lois is actually squirting her own fake blood underneath the bandana with a syringe that I accidentally got in the shot. The thing also leaked all over the place, so now we gotta clean that up as well. But we got the shot, and post-production Ian can figure out the problems later. Okay, with our footage loaded into the movie clip editor, we're going to start by tracking a few strategic locations. Firstly, up near the syringe on the bandana, and then secondly, a few closer to where the blood mess is that we're going to clean up. Quick refresher on tracking settings, I'm using the affine motion model, and I've also got pre-pass and normalize checked. To add a track, you hold Control and left click on a selection with high contrast, and I'm just hitting S to scale this up and get a little bit more coverage. Now to track this forwards, I'm hitting E and using the rightmost pie menu option, but if you like, you can use the side panel under Track, and I'm just going to track that backwards now. I also like to lock my view to a tracking marker with L, just to make sure it's behaving and sticking to the right spot. Okay, we've got things tracked. I'm going to show you some of the masks that we're working with now. These masks are actually pretty simple. This one only has 3 control points. If you select a control point and then shift select a tracking marker, you can use Control P to parent it, and that helps tremendously when you're matching the movement. I was actually able to do that with all 3 corners in this case. The other places I masked were the syringe, the upper bandana, the lower bandana. I also masked off to the side here just to clean things up a little bit, as well as here for some color correction later on. Okay. Now in the 3D view, we need our tracking markers to be represented as empties. And to do that, in the movie clip editor, I'm just selecting all of my trackers with A, and then under reconstruction, I'm using link empty to track. And that'll get them in your 3D viewport for you. Now for this plane here, I just rendered out a freeze frame and used images as planes. I made sure I used an area of skin that was close by where we're cleaning it up. That way the colors match. Then selecting the plane and shift selecting the tracking empty, we can use Control P once again to parent the plane to the empty, and that way it moves along with the arm. While we're here in the 3D view, I'm going to go into the render properties and then just make sure that under film, transparent is checked, and then in color management, we've set the view transform to standard. Now for the syringe, I've done that on another view layer, and it's the same idea, using a freeze frame, using images as planes, and then parenting that to the nearby empty. A quick note, for the patch over the syringe, I have that in its own collection on the second view layer, and that collection is enabled. And then back on the first view layer, that patch of skin has its own collection as well, and that's enabled. And that'll just help us separate the two when we're compositing. Speaking of which, we've got 5 basic elements that we're combining together here. We've got the footage, we've got the patch for the blood, we've got the mask for the patch for the blood, we got the patch for the syringe, and we've also got the mask for the patch for the syringe. Okay, so here are the nitty-gritty details. For the first patch, I started out by doing a little bit of color correction. Then it was time to make a fake shadow for the bandana, so I took it through some RGB curves and turned that way down. Then I took the mask for the lower bandana, I used a Dialight Erode to make that bigger, and then blurred that by 50 pixels, and then used that as a mask to mix the darker version and the normal color version. And this is how it looks without the shadow, and with the shadow. So it's pretty important stuff. Now even more important than that is the actual mask that I put together here. You can see without the mask, it looks like trash. So let's break this down. Here's the original triangle mask that we were working on. I've blurred that by about 25 pixels, and then taken the mask of the lower bandana, blurred that by 8 pixels, and then I did a subtraction operation, and that just really defines the edge of the bandana. I've also got this guy over on the side, and that just defines the edge of the mask and makes it look a little bit less like it's floating off into space. Now for the syringe patch, I just needed to make that a little bit darker, so I put that through some RGB curves. And for the mask of this, I just took the mask over the syringe, made that a little bit bigger with a Dialight Erode. I blurred that by 100 pixels to make a really nice soft transition. And then I took the mask of the upper bandage, blurred that by 25 to get a nice soft edge. Then I used a subtraction operation, and the mask worked out pretty well from there. Okay, that's the shot pretty well cleaned up. If you've made it this far, I have a gift for you, and that's these seamless looping smoke assets. These things do a pretty good job of adding life to environments, and I often find myself using them, especially in kind of sci-fi scenes. But hey, I'd say that's it for me. I hope you have an excellent day.